Okay, so today we are going to do a little video on our Genericode keycode software program. This is the full version of the program. There is also a automotive version available as well. So this is the main menu of the program. We've got 16 different buttons here that allow us to do different things with the program, and we will just take them in order. Before we start going to each different button here, it's important to set up the program for your particular taste. So over here on the right, there's a button that says Application Setup. So we will click that, and this screen allows us to do a lot of different things. The most important is to set your key machine type so that when you look up a key code, you're going to get the right information for whichever type of key machine that you use. So choices here are Freeman Automatic, which would be our FRA 2001 keycode machine, also known as our autocode machine. Freeman Manual would be for our number 2 code machine, or our DC300, also known as a do code. We've got the Laser Key Products Extreme, Extreme S, and 3D Pro. Also we support ITL keycode machines, which would be the 9000 and the 950. HPC, which would be your 1200 series of machines, the Code Max, Ilco and Silca key machines, the Code Pro, Pack-a-Punch and Baxter tryout keys, and Curtis Barnes machines and Exactas. So we're going to make it easy here today. I've actually got an Extreme hooked up to the program, so we'll go with a Laser Key Products Extreme machine. And again, this is the fourth line down. It says machine type. So this is the Laser Key Products Extreme, and then my high security machine type is also a Laser Key Products Extreme. You can actually hook up 2 different machines. Let's say you used a ITL 950 to cut your regular keys, and then you used an Extreme to cut high security. You can set those up so that the machine defaults to the ITL when a regular key is cut, and a Extreme machine when you're doing a high security key. Any electronic machines will have a little setup button here. So with the ITL, it's pretty simple. You just pick your COM port that your computer uses to talk to the machine and a baud rate. With the Extreme, we've got our calibration options here: jaw 1, jaw 2, jaw 3, and whether we are calibrating the cutter or the tracer. Other options here, when we do a code search, we can default to utility locks, vehicle locks, padlocks, Illinois, Chicago double-sided, or pre-60s auto. So we'll just leave it on all locks. Blank type 1, the main key blank that you want to show up when we look up a key code, we'll put that on Ilco. And the secondary type, some screens give you 2 different key blank options or displays, so we'll leave this on Ilco easy. Vehicle cut type, if you're using an automatic machine, you have the option to default to a plunge type or a laser type plunge for automotive keys. And when we look up key codes, the sort order, we can either sort by series, by comment, or by key blank. So we'll leave this on comment. That'll be alphabetical in the descriptions. And of course, we're in the United States, we'll use inches. There's an option in the program to check for updates when you start the program, yes or no. So this automatically connects to the web every time you start the program to see if there's an update available. Last but not least, anytime we have an Extreme machine picked, or a Laser Key Products machine picked, we actually talk through their software to the machine when we're cutting a key. So we need to tell it what directory that's in. By default, it's on C:\Laser Key Products. And then there's also a little button down here. Every time we start the program, it's going to attempt to connect to the Extreme machine. So we will save that and take it from there. Okay, so now that we have the application setup section taken care of, we will start at the top left and just go through our buttons on the main program. So the very top left button says code number, and what we're going to do with that, once we click that, this allows us to just look up any particular key code. It gets us quickly to a bidding, and there's a few different options you can do here. So let's just say we're looking up a L101 key code. Selecting a lock type allows us to limit what we're looking for. So if we know it's a utility lock, which would be desk lock, cabinet lock, things like that, we would pick utility lock. If it's a vehicle lock, we select that. Padlocks. Illinois and Chicago double-sided keys. These are the older Chicago keys that are used. Double-sided keys that are cut differently on both sides. They've got their own section. We also separate down into pre-60s auto. So if it's a classic auto lock, that is a different type of lookup. So we'll pick utility locks and hit search. And we have our list of possibilities. When we know a key blank, an ILCO key blank number over here, it shows it in this column. And again, we've already looked in utility locks, which we also refer to as cabinet, so the type shows cabinet. Now if we did a full search, you can see here we only have 10 records that we found. If we do a full search, all locks, we wind up with 42 different records. So starting at the top here, we've got a Monty, which is a Kia vehicle. It's an automotive lock, shows our key blank here. So let's go back and limit this down to utility locks once again. And now we have 10 different things we can choose from. So if we know that that is, for instance, a Fort lock, we can highlight that and either double click here or click the View Key Data button. They both do the same thing. And now we've got our bidding information, spacings, depths, all sorts of information at this screen. So most importantly, the very top line here, cuts, tells us what the cuts are on this key. We get a little graphic of it, and keep in mind this graphic is not to scale. This is a rough approximation of what the key is going to look like when you get done, but it's by no means perfect. The end view of the key blank and the spacings, the depths, up on top shows the code number that we looked up, spacing, the increment between depths, and this is the screen where we get two different printouts or two different displays of our two different key blanks. So we picked ILCO as our primary and ILCO Easy as our backup. We selected ITL as our key machine type, so here it's displaying there's no known ITL number for this particular key code. It would use flat number 3, insert 2, and tip 0 just based on the type of key that it is. And if we have it connected to an ITL, we can just click cut key. It'll send the information over to the ITL, and the settings button will take us back to where we were in application setup if we need to change anything on the ITL here. A few other buttons you'll see here. Cuts to code if we needed to do a progression, and we'll get into that later with some automotive keys. Search in series if we want to look up another code in this series, we could put in 102, and now it'll take us to a different bidding. We can add the key to history, and this is a way that we can track keys that we've cut before, keep information on them. So we could say grandma's file cabinet or whatever it might be. And now that is in our history database. We'll get to that later. We'll pull that one back up a little bit later. Let's say we made this key on the ITL and we thought one cut needed to go a little bit deeper, we could come in here, type in those same cuts, 153, 13, let's say 155. Click OK. Now up on top you'll see user defined key because it's obviously not L00 or 102 anymore. And this is a key that we've put the cuts in for. So now if we wanted to go back and cut that key again on the ITL, we can. A few other buttons that are here. The snapshot button, this takes a screenshot of what you see and puts it on your desktop. So if we click that, it'll tell you here we've done a screen capture, we put it on your desktop, and here's the number of it. When you hit OK, your browser will open if you have email associated with the program. But basically what that does, if you think we have wrong information in the program or you see an error or anything like that, it's easy to shoot that over to us. You just attach it to an email and say this key is, the spacing's not right, or we found some, I found an inaccuracy in it. So if you want to make a printout of this page, you can do that here. It'll show you a little report with all the information. You can go ahead and click the print button. Close out of that because we don't want to make a print of it. always takes you right back to the main menu, and on the bottom right corner this always takes you back one screen. So Other things available to us here, if we wanted to know, for instance, a Silca number for this key blank, we could click that and just change it. This will not stay. The next time we look up a key blank, we'll be back to Ilco Easy because that's our defined blank type 2, but just for this particular key, if we needed to look up a different brand key blank, we can always do that here. We can also change if we wanted to cut this machine on our extreme instead of our ATL. We can do that, and it'll pull in the extreme information for us. Tells us here to use the shoulder stop, jaw A, the cutting wheel obviously, and we'll get into some of these other options with the Laser Key Products machine later. So for now, we'll go back to the main menu and go to a different section of the program. Okay, moving down, we'll go to our utility locks section. And just keep in mind with Genericode, there are always about 3 different ways to get to the same information. So we'll go to the utility lock section here. What this is an alphabetized list of all the different utility lock manufacturers we know of, and all the code series that are associated with their name. So if we wanted to, let's say we'll go down the list here, and we'll go to Herman Miller here, H-E-R Miller. So click that, click search. So now every Herman Miller code that we know of, and just a reminder, Herman Miller doesn't make their own locks. So, but anyway, we know that here's a few different listings. We can order them by series. So here's all the different Herman Miller codes we know of. So if you have a desk lock and maybe there's a number scratched out on the face of the lock and you can't quite make it out, you can look up Herman Miller and then you can find out what possibilities are. So anyway, they use a lot of L codes and M codes here. You'll see on this particular one, UM, this is the removal key for the UM codes. This is the master key for the UM codes, and then these are the actual UM codes. And it's similar for the L codes. Here's the master key for the L series. Here's the removal key for the LL series. So right on down the line, that's the way those work. And same thing, if we wanted to view this, we can just double click on it. And it'll pull up our information. Or if we wanted to come over here and maybe we had UM226, we can click on Code to Cuts, put in 226. Genericode will fill in the first 2 letters for you since all the codes start with UM. Click OK, and that takes us back to our View Key Data screen. And again, we've covered all this, cuts to code, search in series, add to history. But anyway, we'd be ready to cut the key. If you're connected to the ITL, we just click the Cut Key button. If you're not connected and you have an ITL, this would be number 224. So that's the way the utility section works. You can also go down to the very bottom, click Other, and if we want to do a search, type in Miller. We'll pull up all those codes, all those same codes. And back to the main menu. The original manufacturer section works exactly the same way. This is the original lock manufacturer, so you'll find things like Stribor, Ronus, LNF, that type of thing in here. And it gives you the same type of listing. All the different CISA codes we know of in the program. So runs the same way as the utility section. So those 2 sections are real close to the same in their operation. So. Alright, next we're going to work on the vehicle section. This is probably the most popular section in the program. A lot of guys doing automotive these days. If you don't do automotive, you'll obviously rarely go to this, but here we want you to put in a year, make, and model of a vehicle, and this just opens up a lot of doors to tons of information. So let's just say we have a Chevrolet Avalanche, and last year they made them was 2012. So Genericode's going to show you a couple of different options here. There's a transponder key for it, which is the B111 PT ILCO number. It's also possible to clone that key with an ILCO key, a B111 EK3P. So either one is going to give you the same cutting information, it's just a different key blank basically. So as you can tell here, there is a ton of information on this screen and a lot of different things we can do. the VATS info button, even though it doesn't pertain to this vehicle, it's always visible. So if you're working on an older car that had a VATS ignition, this tells you pellet 1 through 15. This is a set of letters that GM uses in their key code records to tell you what resistor number it is, because they don't just tell you it's pellet number 8. They'll tell you it's an XB pellet. And then this is actually the ohm reading. So if you ever have a VATS key that maybe got out of the bag or you weren't sure what hook it came from, you can put an ohm meter across the pellet and it will reflect very close to this number. Number 9 pellet is 3010 ohms. So that's just a little information for you there if you're working on one of those older cars or you're trying to decipher a VATS key. VIN year information. 10th digit in the VIN number, these letters always reflect what year the car is. So if you're ever questioning that, Genericode will have a chart there for you. And those two buttons are always visible. Down here, code to cuts, if we know our code number, we just click the button, type in G3000 or whatever our code number is. Cuts to codes for progression. Tumbler, this tells us the ignition and the door on the car. The ignition uses the first 8, the door uses 3 through 10. Transponder information, if we know it, it'll give you programming information if we have that information. It's also something you can print here with the print button. Opening information. If we have information on how to open the car, we'll show you what the tool looks like, the linkage, and what to do. There's also some information here, pick direction of the lock, code locations unknown on this particular car. I don't believe a 2012 Avalanche has any codes on it except for the ignition lock. Finally, if we just want to view key cutting information for this particular vehicle, we click View Key Data. When you do that, it's going to look up the first code in the series. So G001 is displayed. So obviously we didn't look up a key code number, so this isn't correct for anything that we've really looked up. But we haven't told Genericode a key code number yet. So we can click Search in Series here and put in G3000. And that's what Genericode will look up for us. If we want to do a progression, we could click Cuts to Code. We can also do that back at this screen right here by clicking Cuts to Code. So we'll go back to this screen and do that. Cuts to Code, and we'll punch in, because we already know what cuts are there, 22, 32, 4, 5. So we're punching in the first 6 of this particular code, which is G0001, which we see up here. So we know G0001 should give us these cuts. So if we punch in the first 6, our progression should show at least G0001 for a possibility. So there it is. The first screen tells you there's 3 possibilities. G0001 is the first one it shows, G2929, and G1720. Now if we want to progress that, click on the Progressions button, and it'll give us a cutting tree. So these are the first 2 we should cut. If those don't work, then we can go on to key number 2. Click the View or Cut Selected Code. We can pick this particular key, and this is handy with an electronic machine. This will work with the 2001, the Freeman 2001, the ITL 950 9000, and the Laser Key Products machine. So we highlight that, click View Cut Selected Code. It's going to take us right to that particular code, and we are ready to cut the key. Now, if we want to cut a different key, we return to progression, and then we can pick a different one. So we just kind of toggle back and forth between these 2 screens until we get the key that we want. And if we hit cancel progression, let's say we got that key, we can cancel the progression. Now we're back to the normal buttons down on the bottom. So that's the way that screen works, the progressioning on Genericode. And we'll click the MM button to go back to the main menu. The next section we're going to cover on Genericode is the Cycle, Boat, Airplane section. So what this section does is it gives an index of all the motorcycles, watercraft, and airplane locks and manufacturers that we know of. So go into this section, you start out at BMW, Ducati, Harley, and we give you several different selections here. If you want to pick Kawasaki, for instance, you can hit search. Every code series that we know of that goes with a Kawasaki motorcycle is listed here, and it's just an index. Starts with this small code series 20 to 31. Some K code series, shows you the key blank as well. It goes down, tells you what years we that we know the locks were used or that particular code series. This series is shown for a four-wheeler, motorcycles in the 60s and 70s, so rather extensive list. And once again, this is going to help out if you have a partial code number, you're trying to figure out maybe where a particular lock went. You can order this by series. But anyway, let's just say we had a KZ code, KZ5002. Click on Code to Cuts. Punch in 5002, click OK. This will bring us back to our View Key Data screen and give us all of our information. Same thing as the vehicle section and the other sections once you get to the View Key Data page. Go back here to Cycle Boat Airplane again. One thing you can do here is click on the full and type in a manufacturer. So give this a listing by model, years, code series, key blank. So there's really nowhere else to go from here. This is just kind of an index basically, but it gives you all the different models that we know of. It's similar to the button right below it. It's just another way to get to the information. Cycle by make, model, year. Here we can come up here and type in Kawasaki, KFX50, and pick a year out, and this will show us all the codes that we know of that go with that particular model. But anyway, that's how that section works. If we want to, we can come down here and click Other, and let's say we're working on a Cessna airplane. So here we know that there's two different code series that go with Cessna airplanes. We can punch in our code again, 2001. Whoops. Program already put in one number 2 for me. Click OK. And brings us back to our View Key Data screen. So that's in a nutshell how that Cycle Boat Airplane section works. And again, cycle by make, model, year is real similar to the vehicle section. You just put in your make, model, and then for Indians we just have most models listed, and they seem to be using a PK code series. So, alright, the next section we're going to cover is the padlock section. And this is similar to the original manufacturer and utility lock section as well. It gives us an alphabetical listing of all the different padlocks we know of, padlock manufacturers, and all the code series associated with it. One thing we get a lot of calls on is Master Padlock. Years ago, Master released most of their codes, and so everything we have from 15-20 years ago is in the program. Not long ago, Master kind of took a stance that they were not going to release full code series, so we do not have full code series for everything that Master has out. It's really just by people looking up particular codes or getting particular codes and then letting us know what they are. We then put them in the program. So there will be a lot of times when you click on Code to Cuts, put in 14H000, click OK. In this case we have that code. Let's look up another one here, 001. So we've done a pretty good job with the 14H codes. We have a lot of those. There will be series that you look up and all you find is zeros listed. In those cases we just simply don't have the codes yet, and many of these series are partials. So there's only part of the codes in the program. But as you see here, a lot of combinations, things like that. 10S01 shows us how to open up a master combination padlock, 22818, and here's the directions, 3 turns right to the first number like everybody knows. So that's basically the padlock section. Next section of the program that I'll go over is the key blank cross-reference. So we'll just click here. This is pretty self-explanatory. You pick out whatever type of blank that you have, let's say an ILCO, and let's say the number we have is O1122, typical Y11 key. Click search. So now this is going to give us all of the crosses that we know of to that particular key. So if you went to Walmart, that's a number 80 access key. Same features available here. If you wanted to take a screenshot, you can click this button right here, take a screenshot of what we see here if you think any of these numbers are wrong or you wanted to email that to us. So, and again, if we want to, we can come down here to ILCO Easy and type in Y11, and we'll get the same list. So that's the key blank cross-reference. The next section of the program that I'll cover is the depth and space section at the top right. This button does change depending on what is set up in application setup. So the depth and space section will be depth and space until you change this to frame and automatic or frame and manual, in which case it changes to manufacturer. Also, if you pick any laser key products machines out of in application setup, this will be on manufacturer. So the manufacturer button is basically Freeman's depth and space manual on disk. So all of the different depth and space charts that are in our depth and space manual that comes with the number 1 or number 2 code machine are listed in here. So if we wanted to cut a A2 6-pin key, a best A2 6-pin key, we just double click on it, gives us all of our spacings, depths, any kind of framing information we need to have. Use the short tip stop, tells us how to gauge the key. And if you had a frame and automatic machine, you could punch in cuts and cut the key. We'll go back in application setup. We'll change this over to HPC. Whoops. And now it's back to depth and space. Click on commercial. And I'll just look up a regular Schlage key here. Hit search. Tells us the different blanks, spacings, depths, that type of information. We'll pick the 1145, click view key details, and here's our spaces, depths, and gives us HPC information. So the section changes a little bit based on who we're looking up. Also, you'll see this Rolodex card here if you have one of the card type machines like an HPC or a Ilco Universal. You can print your own depth and space card out, or card for the 1200 machine. And back to our main menu. Next section we'll go to would be the key blank section. Here you can type in a key blank number and then select exact, includes, or starts with, and then you'll see all the code series we know that are associated with that particular key blank. So let's just say a Y11, and of course we'll get a lot of different returns here, but we'll click on exact and hit search. So now every place that the program finds a Y11, and again these are all going to be repeats, so we're going to find five of the same code series here. So I found a Y11 in an ACE number, a Y11 in COL, Y11 in JED, Ilco Easy, and ESP. So all 5 of these are going to return the same information. But basically we can just go down this list. We found 1235 records, and these are all the code series that are associated with a Y11 key blank. If we want to refine that a little bit, something along the lines of, oh, let's just say an L, or maybe a 999, how's that? So here's just a Yale 999 key blank. So here's all the code series that go with a regular 999 key blank. There's 28 of them. We could also click on starts with. We should get a little bit broader set of returns. Here's a 999A, and of course all we know is that we've limited this to our blanks that start with 999, so anything with a prefix after the 999 will show up as well. Alright, the next button we'll cover is the information button, and basically what this is just a locksmith ledger index that you would see at the end of the year. The December issue is typically the year-end index, but this is just a listing of manufacturers, distributors, associations, schools, editorial information. So if you pick manufacturers out of here and you type in Freeman, you'll see our phone number, website, all the information you would find in that locksmith ledger year-end issue. So that's basically what this is. You can look up different distributors and schools, things like that. So anyway, just a real basic search tool for industry information. So we've covered application setup. Now to the history section. Earlier when we were doing our demonstration, we added a key to history. So clicking on the history button from the main menu will take us to any records we've saved previously. So here's one that we saved earlier when we were looking up an L101 code or 102 code, and it was a Fort key. We saved a comment Grandma's file cabinet with it, so now if we want to view details there, it'll take us back to the key cutting screen and we're ready to cut this key. So we'll go back here. If we want to delete that, we can just click the delete button, and click yes. Down on the bottom here, you can hit Control S if you were to have a long list of these. If you start using the history feature, you hit Control S and you can search for a particular name in the comment section. So that's the history section. Another big section on the program is the Sidewinder codes button. This is a index of every Sidewinder code we have in the program. So our new General Motors keys, we've got the Z code series here. Also listed under GM is the V code series, which is for the new trucks. And again, here we're showing the extreme information. If you remember in application setup, we said that we had used the extreme as our high security machine. So it knows the difference when we're looking up a high security code as compared to a regular code, so it'll always show the right machine type for us. So again, we can just pop back in there. We're integrated with the extreme machine, so we see the jaw and the cutter. It tells us all the different information for the extreme machine, DSD269. So now we can actually just click cut key and send the cutting information right to the extreme machine, or trace the key, turn the brush on. So a lot of the same buttons that we use from the extreme software. Genericode does not talk directly to the extreme machine, it actually talks through their software. So, but anyway, this, as I said, completely alphabetical list that shows all the different high security codes we know of. Occasionally when you use Genericode, you should click this link, click here to see the latest G-code news. That will open up a web page, and that'll take us to the Framin.com website and the G-code news tab. You scroll down to the bottom of this page, it'll tell us what the current version of Genericode is. We're on 14.7.16, and it'll update you to that. If you were on an earlier version like 6.3 or 6.30, clicking on this will download the latest update and you'll be up to the newest version. So again, that just takes you, a computer obviously has got to be connected to the internet and have a web browser ready to go. Last two sections of Genericode that we'll cover are the cylinder pinning chart. This is actually a little routine that runs inside of Genericode. It's not a master key program. What it does is it allows you, click on cylinder pinning chart, you can go over the instructions, you can click continue to the program. And what that'll do is it'll open up a little window and allow you to put in two key biddings. And let's see, we'll just say a Schlage key here. 5-cut standard rotation. Put in your top master key, we'll just go 24680. Put in your change key, we'll go 46802. And now this is going to tell us how to pin the lock. So master pins, bottom pins, top pins, and that'll allow us to, up here you'll see we're going to use bottom pins will be 24600, master pins will be 22282, and then regular top pins. And down here we show what the top pin measurements are. To stop that program, just click on end. And you'll be back to the Genericode screen. Last section will be the antique key pictures section. This is a index from Ilco and Majestic. You can just type in a letter and click search. We've got a couple of choices here. Click on view pictures, and this just shows any of these old antique keys that start with an A on a page, just simply a graphic. Same page shows up either way. Put in a different letter, hit search. These are Corbin keys, and we're getting into some really, really old stuff here, but again, it comes to us from Majestic Lock and Cabe Ilco. One thing we do want to cover is the subject of updates and yearly cost of the program. Once you buy Genericode, for instance, if you bought it this year, you would be on the 2014 version of Genericode, which is basically version 14. When you buy the program, if you bought it early in the year, you would be on a version, say, 14.5.23. So that means that 14.5.23 means that the program came out that version came out May 23rd of 2014. We're currently on a version 14.7.16, so as you can guess, that's July 16th, 2014. If you're on an earlier version of 14, upgrading to a later version of 14 is included in the price of your update. So if we come out with changes during the year that you bought the program, those updates are free. Once version 15 is released, you would pay for version 15. Our updates are completely optional. You do not have to buy them, but if you want to stay on the latest version, we'll send you an email and a form in the mail as well, and you can decide to buy that latest version. The program will not stop working after a year. It will continue to work as long as you have it installed and running. Updates are always optional. So there's nothing you ever have to buy from us. When we get on to later, as the operating systems change on computers, sometimes earlier versions won't work. Version 14 is still supported by Windows XP. We can't guarantee that newer versions will be supported in XP because Microsoft has stopped updating XP and doing support for it. So version 14 is the last version that we can guarantee XP compatibility on. Of course, now the newer operating systems are Vista, Windows 7, and Windows 8. And Genericode runs fine on all those versions. So that's how the updating works. We keep in contact with you via email and mailing, and you can, as I said, just determine whether or not you want to buy that update is on your own.